Okay, good morning again, everyone. Shalom Aleichem, Bruchim Haba. We're continuing with Shavuot Daf Shavuot. We're learning Siman Kuf Daled. We're at the end of Sif Beis. The Mechaber said that if you were davening on the road and an animal was coming toward you, because obviously it's Erev Rosh Hashanah and you're trying to get the head of the ram, and the ram knows that, and you think the ram wants you to get its head? He's like, over my dead body. And that's what you tell the ram. Yes, over your dead body, I'm going to shecht you and I'm going to take your head for the Simanim. So he's running toward you. The only thing is, you're still in the middle of Shemone Esrei and you're not going to be able to catch him right now. So the halacha is that, what do? Don't talk. Veer off the road. But otherwise, you're not allowed to move until you finish Shemone Esrei, unless you're up to the Tachnunim after Tefillah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Batachnunim Sivkatan Tes, Da'az mutter, because then it's permitted. Im ho'akira letzarech mitzvah ktsas. If the moving is for the sake of somewhat of a mitzvah, the halacha is you are allowed to move if you're up to the tachnunim after tefillah. So the Dirshu points out, according to the opinions in Siman Kuf Chav Gimel Sivkatan Chav Aleph, that the Shliach Tzibor needs to say Yu L'Ratzain. Here too, he should first say Yu L'Ratzain. So if you're up to Tachnunim, you're allowed to move in middle of. You're allowed to move if it's a mitzvah ktsas. The Mishnah Berurah adds. What's an example? Kagoin Masha Anu Noyagin Bashliach Tzibor. Shetekav achar chazaras hatfila, right after Shel Tzibor finishes his tefillah, oiker raglav, he moves his feet, v'yoshev l'tachnon, and he sits for tachnon, b'makoymos shenoigin loimer tachnon b'yeshiva, in those places that they say tachnon sitting. V'chein oila la bima l'kriyas haTorah, or he goes to the bima for kriyas haTorah, av shaloi higia adayin lahakadosh she'im teskabel she'poisea, by Hagimel Psios, even though he didn't say the full Kaddish to take the 3 steps back. Now, nowadays, you'll see Chazanim taking 3 steps back after their Chazar Sashatz. They totally made up a new custom, which has absolutely no basis. Chazanim should not take 3 steps back when they finish their Shemone Esrei. Even though, in their mind, they look good. How could they, heaven forbid, sit down and say Tachnon? However, they have invented a new custom. Don't worry, it won't be the first thing that they invented, but that should be, you should throw rotten tomatoes at them. Obviously, you probably won't have them in shul, but you should go over them after and just say, there is no reason to take 3 steps back, there's no basis, they shouldn't do it. Why are they taking 3 steps back? They're allowed to sit down, and those 3 steps, they will ultimately take 3 steps back. When they say Kaddish Teskabel. Or we say in the Gemara about Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Akiva, you would leave him in one corner and you would find him in another corner. Why? From all the bending and bowing. So the question is, how is he able to be so mobile during the Shemone Esrei? All of his mobility was during the Elokai Netzar, was during the Tachnunim. Vainu about Tachnunim shalachar tefillah. Aval shaloi letzorach. But if it's not for need, asal adam lazuz mekaymai, person's not allowed to move ad sheyifsa gimel psius until he takes the 3 steps back. However, by the way, in the Shulchan Aruch later on, Siman Kuf Chav Gimel, the Mechaber says that a Shliach Tzibor does not take 3 steps back at the end of Chazara. He's reliant on the Psiyos that he takes in Teskabel. Oh, I'm sorry. The Mishnah Berurah says if he wants to take 3 steps back, Ein Lem Chais B'Yadai. So hold on to your rotten tomatoes. No need to throw rotten tomatoes. He doesn't have to. You don't have to throw rotten tomatoes. If he wants, he could. But there's no need to. Now, let's say you finished the Shemone Esrei, so we say you're not allowed to move from your spot until you take the 3 steps back. However, says Rucham Kanievsky, you don't have to keep your feet together. Meaning, like this, there's a guy behind you. He's davening a long arichos. He took out the telephone book to be mispalel for them. Yeah? So now you're stuck there for 3 hours. So you're stuck, but you don't have to keep your feet together. You're not to take the 3 steps back, but you also don't have to keep your feet together. After you finish Manesser, Koidim Shamar Oisa Shalom, Ein Isser Im Akar Raglav Lemitzvah Ktsas. It's not usher to uproot your feet a little bit. To uproot your feet for a small mitzvah. What, like what? Kagan Shekibdu Oisa Lepsichas Aron HaKodesh. Let's say they're mechabed you for opening the Aron at the time that they say Avinu Malkeinu. Now, is that a mitzvah? So I would have said, we see a big chiddush from here, that psicha of the Aron is not a mitzvah. It's only a mitzvah ksas. Okay, so many people, they spend big bucks on it, and may they continue to support the shul generously, but they're not actually getting a mitzvah by opening the Aron. It's only a small mitzvah. They get a big mitzvah for giving money to the shul. They get a small mitzvah for opening the Aron. But now we're going to learn they don't even get a small mitzvah for opening the Aron. Says the Mishnah, Shaha'olam choshvim zeh ktsas l'mitzvah. People consider it a little bit of a mitzvah. It's actually not, but people consider it that way. I don't know why he's adding that. Is that a stira to what he said originally? The Mishabur himself called it a mitzvah ksas. They should first say Yiyu l'ratzain. So I'm not sure how to read this. Is it actually a mitzvah ksas, or is it they only consider it a mitzvah ksas? Or if Jews consider something a mitzvah ksas, then it's a mitzvah ksas.
It's not mavur in the Chazal that you need to open our kosher v'ina malkeinu. But it seems that people do that. It seems that we do that for some reason. So whoever opens our kosher for that purpose is doing a mitzvah.
He says sha'olam choshvim zeh ktsas l'mitzvah, meaning it's really not, but people consider it. So
he's not shows about this big things about it. That's what you want to know.
okay. Sif Gimel. Va'afilu nachash karch ala keva lo yafsik. Let's say you have a snake coiled around your leg. Don't interrupt. What could you do? What do you want to do already? You want to talk to it, or you want to call what is it called? Control? I mean, who are you going to call? Snake control? I'm not sure. But you have to call the police. You're 911. What's going on? I have a snake coiled around my leg. You know how to talk? But you could go elsewhere. You could go somewhere else so the snake falls off. If it's a scorpion, paisek, you interrupt. He's more primed to damage. If the snake, let's say, starts rattling its tail and and its fangs look like it has deadly poison on it, at that point it's a good time to talk and say, Mr. Snake, please don't do this. Or you could call the police. Okay. Sif katan yud lo yafsik. Roitzelem aydei dibur kagoin lo yimar la'achar shitzrena. You want to, Yankel, could you please come here and remove the rattlesnake from my leg? V'chein kol hasiv zeh. This whole sif v'sha'achar zeh shemazker hefsik mari hakol aydei dibur. It's all talking about speaking. Aval aydei halicha mutter. To walk it's mutter. Shalicha lo nikra hefsik. Okay, so basically we're talking about a snake that's not very dangerous. So you're not allowed to talk, but you're allowed to walk. Here you're allowed to do it because it's a need. Even though we presume it will not be dangerous. Rabbi Yashav asks an interesting question. He says, nowadays, most people in the big city, if a snake would coil around their leg, they would jump up on the table and start screaming. And in that case, they probably are not having kavana. So why would... So says Rabbi Yoshev, this din should probably change. The Bir Halacha says the reason why snake has a lenient din is because most times it doesn't bite. But if there's a chashash it will kill you, then it will have a din of a scorpion. Rabbi Chanan Wasserman is masber. What do you mean most times it doesn't bite? Since when do we follow Roiv by Dinei Nefashos? Chas v'sham, someone is not. Okay, I don't even want to say the case, but since when do we follow roiv by dinei nefashos? He says that since rubam ena mazikim and ena memesim, it's like lo shchiach hazeka. And in this case, since you're davening, you could be soimech on shluchei mitzvah ena nizoiken. So you're right. In general, we don't follow roiv, but in this case, since most snakes don't bite, and you're davening, you could be soimech on that. Frektuv Shlomo Zalman, you're allowed to kill a snake on Shabbos. So how could you be samech on shluchei mitzvah enam nizoiken if you could even kill it? Also, he asks, you're not going to have kavana. Also, chamira sakanta meisura. So he says, we're talking about a case where you see the snake is not angry. Let's say he's carrying a certificate. He just went to an anger management class, and you see he's very calm. But let's say he's angry. He has smoke coming out of his nose. Then you'd be allowed to talk. Okay, fine. If you don't have a need, back in the Mishnah Berurah, at the end of Sivkat Inyan, Mikri Halicha Gam Ken Ktsas Hefsek. If you don't have a need, walking would also be Hefsek. Chumash Pasak HaMechaber B'Sif Beis. Umuchan Lahazek. If you see the snake is angry and primed to damage, you stop. It says Mishnah Berurah, Afilu Be'enoi Kar Chalakevai. Even if he's not wrapped around your heel, Ela Shiroi Shabbat Negda, you see he's coming toward you, Paisek, you stop. You could interrupt if you see the snake is angry. But if you could veer away or run away, yitat, veer off, layafsik b'dibor, and don't talk, v'chanal b'sif aleph. So walking, when it comes to Shemone Esrei, is always better than talking. I think we saw that the Pri Megadim is masupik about that. However, the Pri Megadim Sivkat on Daled I'm sorry. Do you remember the Mechaber in Sif Aleph? The Mechaber in Sif Aleph said that if there's a king, it's better to abbreviate the Shemone Esrei the Mechaber suggested that if you have a Melech Oived Gilulim, if you could abbreviate the Shemone Esrei by saying the beginning and end of the bracha, you should abbreviate it, or veer off the road, but don't talk. So the Mishnah Berurah says it's better to abbreviate the Shemone Esrei than walk, and the Pri Megadim says no. Maybe it's better to walk. Walking is not a hefsek at all. So that's the rule in general. Walking is much less, meaning moving out of your Shemone Esrei is much less of a hefsek than talking during it. Dalet, Imra Shar Ba Kenegdai. There's an ox headed your way. Paisek, you interrupt. Shemarchiking Mishar Tam. You distance from a Shar Tam, perish Tam Shein Ragal Lahazik. Chamishim Amais. Why don't we say Roiv? Roiv Shar Tam, don't damage, That's what the Mishnah Berurah said by a Nachash, Mishum de Roiv Pa'amim Einoi Noishech. So why by a Shar? I guess, by the way, the Roiv that we relied on was only not to talk, but you are allowed to move away. So here we're talking about moving away. So a Shar Tam, even though, why are you allowed to move away? Roiv Shar Tamim are not going to damage unless there's no such Roiv. But anyway, Imra Shar Ba Kenegdai Paisek, you can interrupt. Shemachikim Mishar Tam, perish Tam Shein Ragal Hazik, Chamishim Amis, Umimuad, perish Ragal Hazik, Malay Einav, as far as you could see. Vim Shvarim Shabamakim Ahu Muchzakim Shein Mazikim, if the ox in those places have a chazaka, that they don't damage. Einoi Paisik, you don't interrupt, says Mishabur, Shvarim, Vishar HaMasairas, a neutered shar. Afilim Eino Yodea, Einoi Paisik. Even if you don't know whether he's an angry guy, you don't interrupt. That's only if you never damage him, hizik. But if he has a reputation, even one time, even if the other oxen don't usually damage. Sif hey, let's begin Sif hey. Anytime you interrupt, if you delay the amount of time it takes to finish the whole thing, you have to go back to the beginning of the tefillah. Says Mishabura, Imsha, afilu rak shtika ba'ama bli dibar, even with silence. Va'afilu rak bein bracha la bracha, even in between brachas. Kula, if you delay the amount of time it takes to say the Shemone Esrei, afilu oimed b'seif tefillah, even if you're at the end of davening and the amount of time it would take to say the remaining Shemone Esrei is 30 seconds, but to say the whole Shemone Esrei is 10 minutes, we evaluate it based on the time it takes to get from the beginning to the end. What if you stopped many times and if you add up all the pauses, it's enough to finish the whole Shemone Esrei? The pauses do not combine. What if you stopped in middle of Elikai Nitzar and you didn't take the 3 steps back? That doesn't count. The stopping is only until Hamvarach Samay Soba Shalom. Chayzer v'imloi chazar, if you didn't go back to the beginning, Elamakum Shapasak Gemara. Let's say you said, I'm not going back to the beginning, I'm going back to where I'm up to, and you finished Sarach Lachzor L'Reish L'Zval Gal Tefillah. You would have to go back and say the whole Shemone Esrei. V'hani mili shaya anis gamar. That's if you were a complete anis. Aval anis listim. But if they're just robbers, Uchahai Gavna Sheniskal El B'diavad Yatza. B'diavad you'd be. I'd say Ulai Halacha Kahayesh Oimrim Hamakilan Hanal Dezal Loi Mikri Oines. Maybe the halacha is like the Yesh Oimrim that we learned above, that unless it was absolutely extenuating, it's not called an oines. So really, if robbers came and you had to stop the amount of time to take the Shemone, say the Shemone Esrei, you should daven again. But b'diavad, you'll be yotzei. Rabbi said, we'll hold it over here. Regarding tomorrow, I would do it at 9 o'clock. I'm just not 100% sure I will be finished and back from shul by 9 o'clock. Does 9:15 work for you? I'd rather do 9:15 because I know I could. I'm more sure I could commit to that time. Does that work? Does that not work?
Recording stop.